Okay, I'd like to call the Governing Board Workshop to order. This is the workshop Friday, February 11th, 2022. And so if you are able, please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we do have a quorum. We're unsure about Mr. Hurl. Oh, there he comes. All right, great. Come on down and join us. Bill Schwinn will not be here today. He's out ill. The first item is for the approval of the minutes from January 14th, Governing Board Workshop and Special Meeting Minutes approval. Are there any suggestions or changes, corrections from those two meetings from the board here? Seeing none, they will stand as written. Okay, the first report we have will come from Roberta Davidson, who attended an OHOA Board Leadership Academy. Go ahead, Roberta.
All right. So every year, OHOA has this HOA Board Leadership Academy. They used to open it up to anybody in Sun City West, and you would pay your $5, but they closed it out. And but they invited this year a governing board to attend, and I was the only one who said I would go.
Well, Roberta, you seem to be the appropriate person with Properties Committee Chair.
Well, I deal a lot with HOAs being a property manager. So the first day, because I was not able to attend the two others because I was ill, had to do with HOA laws, governing documents, and enforcement. And they brought up two legislations that would affect HOA. One was HB 2010, which allows HOAs and condos to fly flags supporting first responders. HOAs can fly the American flag, but nothing political or nothing controversial, supposedly under state law. But so now they're adding first responder flags. And that's went to the state Senate on February 4th. The other one is HB 2069, and that has to do with short-term vacation rentals, the Airbnbs, and the VRBOs and others. And the paper seemed to give the impression that this thing was on a fast track. Unless you have the governor's support for it, I wouldn't hold my breath for changes, because they want to return the power back to the local jurisdiction, which in, I believe it was 2016, they took that right away from them to control them. And there was some tweaking going on in some cities to prevent them being party houses and becoming public nuisances. So, but my big barometer is when the Arizona Association of Realtors has it as one of their legislative priorities, and it's not even anywhere on their website. So I don't think it's going to go anywhere, and I don't think the governor still, has any real interest in that's a very strong lobby, the vacation rental they have a lot of money, and they exerted it with their legislature. So the other two on board member roles and responsibilities I missed, but having been a president of a master HOA and a secretary of a local HOA. I was pretty familiar with that. And how to effectively conduct an HOA board meeting and annual meetings. I think I have a pretty good handle on that one. So those two I had to miss because of illness. But I really think OHOA should open it up if anybody wants to go again, and just charge them and like they used to. But they decided that they didn't want the community coming to their meetings.
I thought they could attend with a fee. Oh, okay,
Nope, because I used to go every year.
okay.
And the last 3 or 4 years, they haven't opened it up.
Okay, I thought that the invitation did have a price on it, but we were invited to go free without paying as a board member. Okay, okay, thank you very much, Roberta. Any questions from the board here for Roberta? Anybody from the audience? Okay, next on the item on that's coming up next is about golf. Harry, you want to fill us in?
We had our meeting yesterday. I thought it was a very productive meeting. We had a lot of input from the committee. Things that we're reviewing and looking at, we're not coming forth with any recommendation yet. But examples are, last year we had no increase in fees. This year, we feel that golf-related salaries and benefits, because of the market force, health insurance, will go up in around the range of $350,000, and golf operational expenses will probably go up about $600,000 because of the increase in ryegrass, fertilizers, petroleum, etc. So at this time, it was brought up at the meeting, a thought process of maybe $2, but then there was a lot of other ideas thrown out about outside play, et cetera, et cetera. And so nothing is being brought forward at this time, but that just to give you an idea, you can see it online too, but that's basically what was discussed yesterday. I miss anything, Pat?
Okay, so it's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress.
Thank you, Harry. Okay, next item on the agenda deals with the RR&P revision, and I'll turn that over to Donna Maloney.
Thank you. Obviously, this section of the RR&Ps contracts has had extensive discussion and comments, and today we are prepared to offer a clean document that incorporates all of the recommended changes and comments. I'd like to just summary this as far as adding a definition in the RR&Ps for independent contractor, and then doing a reorganization within this section. Beginning with A, we are identifying charter clubs may engage independent contractors but not employees. C, independent contractor definition in these RR&Ps, and follow this link to irs.gov. That is the first item. The second item addresses independent contractors who are paid by a club to perform services must be engaged with Form CR8 Independent Contractors Agreement. CR8 must be signed by the contractor and club president and reviewed by the Recreation Activities Manager for reasonableness and liability insurance coverage. Under that section, we identify the examples of contract services. Club leadership determines the qualifications, the monies regarding independent contractor, and again, clubs are encouraged to include a 30-day notice of termination without cause by both parties. And in the third section, this addresses certain services that do not require a CR8 independent contractors agreement, such as food catering services, services provided by other chartered clubs, and club member instructors who do not qualify as an independent contractor may not receive payment for services. Any comments? I see no comments, Madam President.
Comments or questions from the board?
I have a question. When it talks about the liability insurance, who provides that? The club or the recreation centers?
That's provided on the CR8, I believe. Correct, Cliff? Yes, that is incorporated on the CR8 form.
Thank you.
Roberta?
I just had a question. Who determines or what determines whether somebody does not qualify as an independent contractor?
It is a club responsibility to, as we stated in A, see independent contractor definition in these RR&Ps and follow the link to irs.gov. And it gives clear definition as to the difference between an independent contractor and an employee.
No other questions from the board? Okay, questions from the audience or comments? Do we? That's the only page that we're discussing right now.
Okay, so you're taking comments from the page?
Yes.
I'll write my name down in a minute. Michael Haheim, 73271. A lot of times, because of the nature of comments, the board hears more nays than it does yays. So I would like to give a yay. I am really impressed with the amount of work that's gone in and the multiple changes that are being made to this. I'm impressed. I have a question and a comment then. The question is, can you give me the reasoning when I'll take my seat after this, why you removed the examples of employees, if I understood you correctly? And two, are you going to address the CR8, specifically Exhibit A, at some point in your review? Thank you. Do you want me to clarify those again?
I'm a little confused. First of all, we do not, or we did give examples of contract services.
I thought I saw the review that followed this. The document was removed. I doubt farther down on the second one,
Are we talking about certain?
the clean copy,
Yes, the clean copy.
they are still in there?
On the clean copy, the examples are still in there.
I stand corrected. Thank you for that.
No problem.
The second, hopefully you're willing, are going to look at Exhibit A in the CR8 at some point. I believe there are a couple of minor things that could be improved and one kind of major thing that could be improved to dovetail with the requirement to use the CR8 in that form. If you take it up at some point in the future, I would hope you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, could we have the clean copy put up, please, on the screen? Thank you. Another comment?
Patty Burleson, 123778. Just a clarification for me. If a club member teaches a class and they are not considered an independent contractor, they are not to be paid, it's a donation to the teacher, does that mean that then a contract is not necessary for a club member to teach a class because they are not an independent contractor?
That is correct.
So no contracts for club members who teach workshops or classes?
If they are not an independent contractor.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments from the audience? Okay, at this time, do we have any objections from board members to move this on to be voted on at the end of the month? Seeing no objections, then we will put this on the agenda at our regular meeting, which is the only time we can vote. And we will vote on this issue. And then we're going to have a big celebration because that will be the end of the RR&P discussion for this year, and clubs can move on with their activities. Okay, thank you very much. Next item. Capital project update. Go ahead, Carl.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, Board. You've had in front of you over the last few months the capital budget for review. It was given to the General Manager on December 1st, and then we've proceeded over the last month and a half with opportunities for review. We have had a few changes, so this in the project planning process timeline is our moment that we do an above $50,000 review if needed, or any questions. And I'd just like to go over the 4 items that have had change since you've seen it last. At the metal shop parking lot, we are proposing to do a mill and replacement next year as opposed to 2 years from now. After a very strong evaluation of that lot, all the construction work, it's not going to survive that long, and it would not be wise to do repairs and waste that money when we're only a year away from actually doing a mill and replacement. So $52,000 has been proposed to be added to the budget for metal shop parking lot mill and replacement. The next change after that was a line item called golf maintenance equipment. It has had a reduction in cost by $147,943. Just want you to know that. Also, golf maintenance vehicles has had a reduction in cost, $50,167. Grandview Irrigation Lakes shoreline repairs at number 14 has been an add. Golf has asked for $177,000 to be added for this project to be done in next year's budget. And the only item that is not on the $50,000 and above list is an Echo Mesa Cart Path slurry seal for $46,000 being added. And those would be the only changes since the last review that you've had for the capital budget. Any questions?
Carl, what's the net effect of the increase in this?
If my math is correct, it shows that we've increased the capital budget by $76,890 just from my notes, but he could give the absolute if I'm wrong, but $76,890 is what I believe the add is.
Okay, I know you will get this question at Budget and Finance, so I want to give you a heads up to please give us a total of what it was and then the new total when we bring it to Budget and Finance.
Yeah, I don't think this will be going back to Budget and Finance. I think you'll be getting the overall budget.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I don't know that this would get seen, so that's why I'm
Okay.
bringing it to the governing board.
Okay, thank you.
I have one. The Echo Mesa project isn't on this list. Is it on this list? Am I not seeing it on this
It
list?
is $177,000. It's the last yellow added capital project.
Oh, I see. It's just, that says Grandview though.
Oh, I'm sorry. The Echo Mesa Cart Path slurry seal is not because it's a $46,000
It's under
project.
50, okay. Thank you.
It is possible, Pete and Todd have expressed that it's possible that does go above 50 and would be brought to your attention later due to some price increases in slurry seal.
Thank
So,
you.
but right now it's $46,000 in the budget.
Any other questions? Questions from the audience? Okay, thank you, Carl. Was Todd going to come up with anything? No, just if anybody had any questions. Okay, you're here in case there were questions about the golf course issues or the environmental issues. All right, let's move ahead then to the master plan update. And because Bill isn't here, I think, Katie, you're just going to give us a brief comment.
Sure, thank you. So we wrapped up the roundtables on February 1st, and that was with a third party that came in from out of town to do those. Those were held at each of the rec centers on purpose, an opportunity for everyone to attend as close to their home as possible in an effort to get as many people from all walks of life all throughout the community to attend those on February 1st. We had over 100 people attend those. Staff was not involved. We were outside the room on purpose, again, to make it safe, a safe room for those folks to speak about their wishes for the community, hopes and dreams, what they'd like to see Sun City West become, the things they thought we were doing well, the things they thought we could improve upon. So we're waiting on that report from that facilitator, and that report will be incorporated into the rest of the documentation that is coming from Epic Strategies. They're, of course, working on the finalization of the survey from the community and from the outside data that they are pulling together on Generation X, on millennials, on boomers, what kind of things people are looking for in master plan age-restricted communities, as well as incorporated our needs on water conservation with the golf courses and some other major high-dollar things that will need to be incorporated into our long-range master plan. So we're looking for a presentation to the board and the community in the March timeframe. So on schedule for that.
Thank you, Katie. Any questions, comments from the board? From the audience? Okay, let's move on to unfinished business. We're looking at policy L3, and Tim Hurley will tell you about this.
Thank you, Madam President. The review for policy L3, it took a couple of different courses. One was, it was last revised back in 2008, and then since 2008, we've moved even further into the digital age than what the policy was stating. The policy dealt with books and written issues and that sort of thing, and part of the rationale for updating it was to bring it into the digital age. Okay, the name of this policy is the effective utilization of legal services, and legal services are an important resource for the board and the general manager to have. The availability of this resource also brings a responsibility to use it judiciously and conservatively. This policy rewrite tries to balance reasonable, legitimate inquiry with the limited access that is appropriate for confidential, privileged information. This policy has 3 sections. It deals with requests for new legal services, the documentation of legal advice, and the review of past advice. In the first, deal with new legal services. The board president, general manager, and board directors may all request advice from the association attorneys. The board directors make their requests through the governing board president. The president has the option to either approve or deny the director's request. If the president denies the request, the director has recourse to ask for a vote of the entire board. If the board approves the request, it must be honored, but if the board sustains the denial, the request is tabled. Again, the director has another recourse. If the facts behind the denied request materially change, the request can be reviewed. Okay, as for the previous policies of L3, the request for legal services had some very specific format that the request be factually specific and narrowly drawn. This was done to give the attorney the specific parameters that the request was asking for. If you make a broad request, you're going to get a broad answer. If you make a narrow request, you're going to get a more specific and narrow answer. Legal service by its very nature is privileged and confidential information. As such, the documentation and preservation of this privileged material is critical if the need should ever arise to review past advice. Email is the preferred method of communication with the attorneys, in that case, it creates a thread of information. The general manager's office maintains a confidential file of legal advice, which I have termed the Confidential Legal Advice Reference File, or CLARF. Sorry. The CLARF shall be maintained to its confidential and searchable in a manner that appropriate documents can easily be retrieved. In the case the device is given verbally, this information shall be transcribed into electronic form and promptly preserved in the CLARF. Okay? When requests are made to review past legal advice, the same procedures are followed as in Section 2. And that also brings in the directors asking the board president can refuse or not, deny, or approve or deny, goes back to the board, and the board director has the same recourses as in before. This brings consistency to the two types of requests for new legal service and to review old legal service. And I have to say that when I did this, this was almost a major rewrite of the second half of this document, so the red line version is a little messy, so I apologize for that. Are there any questions?
Board, do you have questions of Tim? Comments? Ann?
I'll just say I'm very impressed with what you've done, Tim. Thank you for all your efforts.
Many years of writing contracts has come to help.
Lisa, did you have a question?
Tim, thank you. I appreciate this, but I have one question regarding under 2.0, then 2.2. And this stems from yesterday, our discussion in looking up some of the legal documents. Do you want me to read it, or are you good
Go
with
ahead.
that?
What's your question?
So what we saw yesterday, one of the reasons I think this should not apply is because some of the documents we were looking for yesterday contained additional information than what we were actually given when we requested the information. So I think it's important that we, when we let the general manager's office consult the confidential legal documents, and then therefore perhaps we're not given all the information. That's why we need to go back and look at the documents. So sometimes I think we're not given all the information.
Well, I think basically what this does is it tries to narrow the request down to a specific topic, a specific situation that you can request information on. And that's just the same as asking for new legal advice. So it's consistent. Looking at prior advice is consistent with looking for new legal advice. Does that help any?
Not really, but thank you.
Madam President?
Yes.
Tim, until recently, my history, my experience with this was that there was a notebook that with all the legal stuff that was locked up as in the bylaws, as it states in our bylaws, or this policy was policy. That my only, until just recently, my only experience with anybody asking for this was a board member who was not interested in a specific topic, but was interested in what the broader range of legal questions were asked to the attorney. It was not nefarious. It wasn't malintended. It was simply for him to gain a better knowledge of what kind of stuff we're facing as an association. And I think under this narrow, which I appreciate what you're trying to do, but it seems to me that kind of goes away. So now we're all kind of shooting blind, and it takes longer and longer to understand what situations, confront us that would require attorney advice. So I think that we're losing something from that perspective.
Well, give me an example of what you're looking for.
Well, at the particular board member simply wanted to sit and look and see what kind of questions were being asked. What are we worrying about? Are we HR issues? Are they bylaw issues? What sort of things are we looking at? And I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that as a board member. We all sign confidentiality agreements. We all know the difference between confidential and non-confidential stuff. We're taught that. And so I don't think I can give you a specific, except beyond that. I think that's pretty specific what I'm saying.
When you asked for new legal advice, you have to go through the policy.
I have no problem with that, but this is not what this is saying. It says if I
No,
want to go.
it puts the same criteria to ask for prior legal advice as asking for new legal advice. And why should someone be able to cast such a broad net to just go on a fishing expedition, to just go look for anything that's in the files?
That wasn't what I'm saying at all. You're misconstruing what I'm saying. I'm saying that I don't understand I'm a brand-new board member. I don't know what is facing our association legally. So I'd like to see what has been asked in the past 2 or 3 years, 4 years, whatever it is, time period is. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing ill-intended about that. It's just for my personal information. What are we facing? So that I can better deal with issues as they come up, because I know that 2 years ago we talked about this. So I don't think that this is a good move. From that perspective, I think the rest of the work you've done is good work. And I think that there are narrow places for narrow, but there's also places for a broader sweep on this.
Well, I disagree. If you don't ask specific questions, you're not asking any question at all. You're just saying, show me what's out there so I might be able to say, I'm interested in this or that. I don't think that's an appropriate use of privileged confidential information.
But Tim, you're misinterpreting what I'm saying. I'm not looking for something to use against somebody. I'm not looking for a specific topic about how to respond. I'm looking at what questions are asked and how the attorney responds on it could be any number of things. As I said, it could be environmental stuff that we're talking about. But how do I know that this has already been dealt with last year if I don't have the ability to go through and just casually look through a file? I mean, it sits there. The board member in question sat beside Kathy's desk and looked through the notebook and said, oh, yes, interesting, and read it, and next, and didn't read everything.
Well, this was not directed at any one person. This is
agree
directed at maintaining the confidentiality and the attorney-client
Agreed.
privilege of information.
I understand that entirely, but this does not violate what you're saying, the attorney privilege or the confidentiality. If a board member who has signed confidential agreements sits down and reads legal opinions, how is that violating any confidentiality?
Okay, can I interject here? If the person wants to do that, wouldn't they just submit that and put that down for the reason?
And look at the whole book, but there's no book anymore, I'm told.
No, there is no book. Everything's electronic
So
at
how
this
do we
point.
do that?
That's why we started redoing this policy, just because of that issue that needed to be changed. And then this led to other changes. And as Tim said, it was like a total rewrite to cover this. My head is this direction. Now I need to look over here. Comments, Lisa?
Thank you, President Fitzsimons. So to Director Sloan's comment regarding first the binder, that according to the bylaws, there's supposed to be a binder, which now there isn't. And to my knowledge, we never voted on dissolving this binder.
It was a policy, not a bylaw.
Okay, a policy. So
This is what we're doing now.
That's why it hasn't been rewritten since 2008. This is
Okay.
trying to bring it up to date. There hasn't been a binder for a long time. Is that right, Kathy?
No, excuse me. I was president, and I can give you the board member name that came and sat by your desk, and there was a notebook, and he went through each page. I watched it. I saw it. It's been there, Kathy. This is just within the last 2 or 3 years that this has happened. I don't know how it happened.
I just changed it from vote to digital, and the binder's always been there. I've kept them all these years.
So what you're saying is you have the binders from the past, but the current stuff is now on.
Nothing left. I asked the attorney, are we allowed to, once everything is scanned and it's captured,
Okay,
can I get rid of these? And he said, yes, you don't need the binders and the
Okay.
digital, as long as you've got everything captured.
okay, so we've moved into the digital age, and all of the things are done digitally. One of the problems with all of the L policies is up until this year, we haven't had somebody looking at them. And that's one of the goals that the board set, was to look at the Ls and the Ms and the Cs that no committee were responsible for, and that's why Tim has taken this on to identify the ones that needed to be updated. And of course, if it says we've got a hard copy book and we don't, then that we need to change the policy, and that's what we're trying to do now. Other questions? Oh, okay, go ahead, Lisa.
Thank you, President Fitzsimons. I'm sorry, I never got to ask my question.
Okay.
So what I was going to tell you in answer to your question in regarding the broader spectrum and if this was available to us, again, reverting to yesterday when we were looking for these documents, there was a document I was looking for yesterday, but it wasn't on the flash drive that we were looking at because we were told, well, you didn't request that. It wasn't in your area that you were requesting. So now we're back to, I said, well, this was just something that happened, back January 31st to February 2nd. So I'm a little confused now. I mean, if it's going to be there on a flash drive for us and we plug it in, why it's not there? And so.
Is there a question there?
Well, Kathy, yeah, the information wasn't there, Tim.
Excuse me, yeah, Kathy, go up, grab a mic so everybody can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay. The request that came in to me was for specifically all 2021 documents which were provided on that flash drive. So when you needed something else, it was looked at, determined that it was 2022, and you were given the opportunity to see it.
Right. Thank you, Kathy. Right. But I was just answering Sue's question as to why she was saying weren't the documents available that we were looking for, and that's what I was saying.
Well,
if the binder was there, we would have had the documents we needed.
No, the binder you would have had to ask for it because all the binders were by year.
Right.
So you would have had to ask for 2022.
But you would have just been able to hand us a binder.
Either way, you have to ask for what you're looking for.
Correct. And you absolutely printed a document for us. But thank you.
Madam President?
Yes.
May I ask
Jim?
a follow-up question? So under that scenario that was just given, all of 2021 documents were provided. That's not narrow,
No.
folks. That is
It's
not
not.
narrow. So why are we saying a narrow needs to be narrow? Why can't we be more specific?
Because the original said that they could ask for anything. And that's a waste of time, and it's a fishing trip to just go searching through everything that's out there. That's not appropriate for confidential information.
But again, I don't see the controversial nature of that.
If a director wants to make a specific request, I want to know what happens with.
So I could say this week I'd like to look at 2022, next week 21 and 20 and so forth, all the way back. That would be okay then?
That's a little broad.
But we just decided that it was broad and that it was okay to be broad.
No.
We just did.
Be
That was just
factually
honored.
specific
Okay.
and narrowly drawn, a detailed statement of the facts that gave rise to the issue.
No, but I'm saying.
Okay, Katie, you want to interject something here?
Yeah, just looking at this from staff's perspective, when we got the first request for the materials, we did ask that Sharon put an FOI request in, so we had a specific scope of what she was looking for. She wanted all the documents from 2001, and that was what was put on the flash drive. And so was it narrow? Not entirely, but we knew specifically what she wanted. We had it down. We had who was asking for it, so we had a scope. We were able to provide that. The problem came up that a new request came in. We didn't have a written request for it, and somehow you guys looked at the exact same documents instead of requesting a new request with a new scope. So for staff to fulfill these requests, to Tim's point, if it's documented, we know what you want, and it's narrowed down to whatever extent that is, staff can fulfill it. If there's no paper trail and it's not documented and it's not narrowed down, we can't properly fulfill it, and then you have errors like a 2022 file wasn't on the flash drive because that wasn't on the original request. So narrowing it down as much as possible, documenting why you want it, allows staff to fulfill that request appropriately. And being as narrow as you want, to Jim's point, I guess goes to why do you want the information? And if you look at it from the perspective of a board member sitting down looking through files just for fun is not appropriate. And right now, we've got a sitting board. None of you are going to do that, but you don't know in the future that you're not going to have a board member who has an axe to grind against a neighbor and wants to look through those documents because there's a CC&R violation or something against a neighbor, and they're going to use that. There's nothing in your bylaws that does anything for a board member that violates the confidentiality of these legal documents. So before we allow that broad range sitting down, looking through these documents for whatever may pique your interest, maybe we ought to reinforce those bylaws to say it's more than a slap on the wrist if you violate that confidentiality. But in the meantime, the way Tim's written it, so long as the scope is there, the narrowness is there, it's documented and it's written, staff can at least fulfill it. That's all, we're looking for to fulfill it appropriately.
Yeah, may I-
Yes, and I would be supporting Tim in terms of, we really do need to know the purpose, and there may be situations where, yes, you want to look at the whole last year. So if there's a rationale for that, I guess that can happen. It's pretty difficult. Typically, you want to research something that the board has decided before you step forward with making some changes. So you want to look back to see what was happening in the past. And typically, then you would narrow it down to that subject matter, and that would make sense. I think this is just a way to kind of formalize and to provide a written request coming forth instead of letting it just be open-ended. So, Tim?
If I may, Title 33, 1804, which deals with availability of records, says that records need to be made reasonably accessible. And to me, this is reasonable.
Okay, other comments from board members? Harry?
Yes, I guess my thought process is here is somebody makes a request for this information about a specific topic, and they said the year 2021, but also part of this happened in 2022. I don't think you should have to make a separate request to get the 2022 stuff because it all pertains to the same issue. Logic says they're there for one reason, to look at it, and just what we're hearing, you got to be so specific, it's got to be to the year, et cetera. That's not logical.
Yeah, I don't think that's how this happened, but if you had identified a specific topic, then you should receive the items that go with that. Okay, all right, there's talking going on up here and in the crowd, okay? So let's kind of cut that off and just be listening at this point. This is to try to get it specific, Harry, so that that doesn't happen. Right? I mean, that's what we would want. That's what we would want to do.
I don't think what's said.
Okay, in the new policy, it does say that, though. We're trying to clarify it so that it's correct from now on. We can look at the past, but we are looking forward to the future so that we've got it written correctly so that those kinds of things don't happen. Right? I mean, that's my understanding of the purpose of this. Okay, comments from the audience?
Michael Haheim, 73271. Sort of to Jim's point here, and I can't see the original thing to which I was going to refer, but it says specific legal advice. Nothing says you cannot request a summary. Specific legal advice is different. You are not asking for any broad range, nothing that abrogates any clubs or individuals' rights with that. A summary is totally different, and the wording allows you to request a summary. It doesn't say you can't. And again, there's a difference between a summary with no legal advice, no specific indicators of where it even came from. All you're requesting, and I'm going to say it for the fourth time, is a summary of what the lawyer has seen for the last year. That seems to me a very valid thing to do. That's it.
Okay, and just as a response a little bit to that, the board does receive summaries. So if the general manager has asked a particular question of the attorney, then the general manager will provide a summary for us. And typically then if people want to read the exact words of the attorney, then they make the special request and go in and take a look at the document. So that's how it usually happens. Okay, another comment from the audience?
Gary Bosak, 102-585. It's called privileged confidential communication for a reason. And what Tim has done here is tried to get specifics so that people's time is not wasted, as Katie's mentioned. But also, once you leave the board, you're no longer bound by that, I assume.
Yes, you are.
Oh, you are, forever?
For life.
Forever, okay, good, that's great. I don't share, unfortunately, Jim's opinion about everybody's ability to do that. All of you have experienced at some point where you've confided in somebody with something and you've hoped that it was kept between the two of you, and then it winds up surfacing somewhere else. Someone may have forgotten that was even where they found it. So I think Tim's spot on in restricting this. The approval by the board for this policy as is, I think is appropriate. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from the audience? Okay, do we have any opposition to taking this to the meeting at the end of the month for a vote? Is anybody opposed to doing that? I don't think so. 2 of you? Anybody else? 4 of you? Well, I'll take it, I'll take my part of the consensus and take it to a vote. So we will vote on it, and you'll have your opportunity at that time. Tim, would you make any changes here? I think that the title of there might be some question with Kathy's title. Is that incorporated in here? That's an editorial thing that can be fixed.
I just used General Manager's office.
Okay,
as,
so that's consistent
Right.
all the way through in
Right.
the new one? Okay, yeah, because those titles change and then we get kind of confused with those kinds of things. Yes. Lisa.
Thank you, President Simons. I'd just like to say one last thing, and I think, Tim, you might agree with this as well. Yesterday, when we were looking at the documents, I'd like to say maybe we need to come up with another location as well that is maybe a little more secure. As well, yesterday, Kathy, you need to sit with us, and that's perfect. But I didn't feel that we were in a secure location. We're reading these documents, we're discussing them out loud, the door is wide open. We have no control over who's coming in and out of that area, and you want us to be responsible for this privileged information, yet we don't have any control over who's coming in and out of that area behind us, and we can't see that behind us, and we have to leave that door wide open. So I think we need to maybe either go in and shut the door with Kathy, or we need to go to another location and be able to shut that door with Kathy. But I think we need to address that as well, Tim.
well, I think that location was, it was open, the door was open for a reason.
Right, no, and I understand that.
But that point's well taken, I understand that.
People were coming in and out, and I did not feel comfortable with that, because
Right.
now we're tasked with,
Okay.
like Gary said, keeping that information to us, but we don't know who was listening to us.
Well, this could be resolved by you reading it independently and not discussing with other board members. You go in and read it on your own, and that maybe is the issue, because then you're just silently reading and you're not talking with another person about that, because I question whether or not that's appropriate board behavior to be having those discussions. So might be something we want to look at too,
Well,
Tim.
the last 2 statements which I added were copies of confidential documents shall not be taken from the General Manager's office without the written permission of the association's attorney. And that copies and cannot be produced without written permission of the attorneys. So the only question that I have about a remote location is making sure that that does not happen.
Okay, so we'll revisit this for a vote at our meeting at the end of the month. Okay, we're at the agenda 6.01, Board Director Comments. So let's go around. Roberta? Harry? Lisa? Ann?
This is the clean copy.
Donna?
I am so excited that maybe we could be done with the RR&Ps at the end of the month.
Ooh,
Hallelujah.
Maybe.
Hallelujah.
Okay, Tim,
I have no further comments.
Sharon? Jim? Okay, then I will tell you that our next meeting is the regular meeting, February 24th, right here in the lecture hall. And then the next workshop is March 11th. And that one will be in the Summit, at Palm Ridge. Oh, audience comments. Thank you. Do we have audience comments? Oh, we got Katie.
Comment on YouTube about if the policy says that these legal documents should be in a binder, why not just keep them in a binder? And I think we discussed it, just electronic changes of time, times have changed with electronics. And just to add to that, you know, most HOAs and planned communities are struggling with this same move into the 21st century. So we're definitely not alone in that.
Yeah, which is very true. We'll muddle through it until we get it so it works properly. Okay, audience comment that I forgot. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm John Schalk.
And rec card number?
127876.
Thank you.
Subsequent to your January 27th meeting, the board had an executive session to discuss two issues: independent contractors and club falling under or being subsidiary of the rec center's 501c4 umbrella. Since the board's vice president provided legal counsel advice regarding independent contractors to the charter clubs, I would like to know what information the board was provided regarding the 501c7 clubs falling under or being subsidiary of the rec center's 501c4 umbrella.
Okay, that is a separate issue, and the board will probably take this on after we get finished with the RR&Ps if we determine that it should be an agenda item.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, then with all of my other announcements, I guess we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.